Tina Turner was a true icon. Her powerhouse voice, electrifying stage presence, and incredible resilience made her one of the greatest performers of all time. From her early struggles in an abusive marriage to her rise as the queen of rock and roll, she overcame unimaginable hardships to become a legend. But behind the fame, Tina endured tragedy, health battles, and personal struggles that shaped her remarkable journey. Today we take a deep dive into the tragic details about Tina Turner, the pain she endured, the strength she found, and the heartbreaking realities of her final years. She was born Anna Mae Bullock on November 26, 1939, in the rural community of Nutbush, Tennessee. Calling the family poor barely covers it. Both parents were sharecroppers, eking out a living from the land, and Anna Mae got used to the back-breaking reality of picking cotton under the sun. Then World War II arrived, uprooting everything all at once. Her parents headed off to work at a defense factory in Knoxville, but they left Anna Mae and her two older sisters behind. Separated, shuffled around grandparents' homes, the little girl already felt life's cold sting. She was only a kid, yet had begun collecting the scars that come with abandonment. It got worse. When she was about 11, her mother simply walked out on the family. She didn't say goodbye, she just vanished, leaving Anna Mae and her siblings in confusion. That sense of being unwanted etched itself into her soul. 2 years later, her father followed suit, leaving to start anew in Detroit. No note, no conversation, just gone. Suddenly, young Anna Mae found herself under the care of another grandmother in Brownsville, Tennessee. That constant feeling of disposability became a quiet, grim companion. She tried to distract herself by exploring the typical teenage experiences. She had a first kiss with a boy named Harry Taylor, but her innocence was so profound that she kept her lips pressed tight, too nervous even to breathe. He teased, "You don't know how to kiss." She'd roll her eyes later, but at the time it was pure mortification. During that phase, she also worked housekeeping jobs to contribute to the household. Even as a teenager, Anna Mae felt obligated to help financially. Meanwhile, tragedy was busy tracking her down. In her mid-teens, her half-sister Evelyn and two cousins died in a car crash. Not long after that, the grandmother who'd been her stable figure passed away as well. One heartbreak followed another. With nowhere else to turn, Anna Mae reconnected with her mother in St. Louis, the same woman who had walked out on her so many years before. She might have harbored resentment, but survival was the priority. So she picked up and moved again, heading to St. Louis to see if she could rebuild any relationship with the mother who'd once left her behind. Little did she know that this relocation would fling open the door to her destiny. She started frequenting local clubs at night alongside her sister. It was in one such spot, the Manhattan Club, that she first glimpsed Ike Turner and his band, the Kings of Rhythm. That band was tearing it up. Electric guitar licks, unstoppable rhythms, a vibe like no other. Anna Mae's eyes lit up. She wanted in, had to be part of that high-voltage music scene, so she kept bugging Ike, begging for a shot at the microphone. But Ike barely acknowledged her. One evening, the band took an intermission, and Anna Mae decided she'd had enough waiting. She snatched the mic without permission and belted out a B.B. King ballad. The moment she hit those notes, the crowd froze. Ike himself stood there wide-eyed. He knew raw talent when he heard it, and he had to concede the kid had it. She was unstoppable. That single performance launched Anna Mae's official spot with Ike's band. At first they called her Little Ann, and she started doing regular gigs, practicing under Ike's tough direction, training her voice, refining her stage presence. She might have been starstruck by Ike, but romance didn't spark immediately between them. In fact, she was dating the band's saxophonist, Raymond Hill, a relationship that led to her first pregnancy when she was still just in high school. They lived briefly with Ike, but Raymond left, heading back to his hometown and leaving Anna Mae to raise baby Craig alone. She was 18 with a child, but the dream of singing refused to die. She held on, forging ahead with Ike's group. Then came 1960, a pivotal year. Ike had composed a track called A Fool in Love, intending for a male vocalist to record it. That singer flaked, so Ike said, "Fine, we'll have Anna Mae sing it." The result was pure magic. Sue Records heard the single and offered $25,000, insisting that Ike feature Anna Mae front and center. Realizing the potential goldmine, Ike rebranded her as Tina Turner. He took that name further than a standard stage moniker by trademarking it. He wanted to guarantee that if she ever quit, he could replace her with another singer who would just slip into the Tina Turner label. That controlling move was the earliest sign of an ominous power dynamic. But back then, Tina was just thrilled to see success on the horizon. She let it slide, not imagining the nightmares that would follow. A Fool in Love soared on the R&B charts, leading to an official transformation of the band into the Ike and Tina Turner Revue. The pair's chemistry on stage dazzled audiences. Yet it wasn't until 1962 that Ike forced a rushed wedding in Tijuana, Mexico. The honeymoon found him dragging Tina to an explicit show. She was mortified, but Ike seemed oblivious to her feelings. That pretty much set the tone for their married life. He insisted on total obedience, using intimidation and physical aggression whenever he felt challenged. Tina had grown up neglected and unwanted. Now she found a man who seemed to invest in her career but also demanded her absolute submission. She tried to appease him, focusing on the music, hoping they could keep the violence behind closed doors. But it was only a matter of time before the situation would become unbearable. They had a son, Ronnie, while continuing to raise Tina's eldest, Craig, along with two of Ike's children from a prior relationship. So they were a patchwork family. The Revue, however, thrived, crossing race lines in the American South. White and black fans both flocked to see Ike and Tina, especially Tina's explosive stage presence. She was a woman who danced with unbridled energy, powered by a voice like thunder, wearing short-fringed dresses that showcased her muscular legs. The group's set was a swirl of R&B, rock, and frantic, unstoppable motion. Along the way, they chipped away at segregation, music bridging that stubborn racial gap. People recognized that on stage, Tina was a goddess, unstoppable and charismatic. Behind the scenes, she was cowering under Ike's tyranny, absorbing the psychological toll. He used violence as a twisted form of discipline, punishing her if she missed a cue or objected to his flirtations. He micromanaged everything, from the songs she sang to her personal finances. She felt suffocated but didn't see a path out, especially not after the group soared to bigger success, earning widespread fame. Finally, the pressure cracked her spirit. By 1968, she'd had enough. Overwhelmed by Ike's brutality and controlling nature, she tried ending her life via a Valium overdose. She survived, awakening in a hospital bed, realizing that if she didn't leave, she would die eventually, either by her own hand or by Ike's. Yet it took her another 8 years to work up the courage. The last straw came in 1976 while on tour in Dallas. Ike assaulted her viciously in their hotel room. Dazed, battered, Tina waited for him to fall asleep. Then, with just 36 cents in her pocket and a gas station credit card, she slipped out of that hotel and ran for her life. She literally fled across a highway, bruised and desperate. The next morning, she reached out to a friend who picked her up. She told them, "I'm done. I will never go back to him." 2 years later, in 1978, the divorce was official. She surrendered nearly every material possession, houses, publishing rights, financial assets, just to get free. All she insisted on keeping was her stage name, Tina Turner. Ike had legal ownership of that name, but she refused to yield. She'd built an identity as Tina Turner, and no one was taking that from her. That demand signaled the second major turning point of her life. She would rebuild from scratch, older than most up-and-coming artists, broke and scarred but still determined. Her mother, heartbreakingly, sided with Ike. She believed Ike was the reason Tina had found fame, so leaving him was akin to throwing away the golden goose. This betrayal cut deep, echoing the wounds Tina had carried from childhood. But she had no time for bitterness. She had to survive. From the late 70s into the early 80s, she played tiny clubs, ballrooms, TV variety specials. A star who once filled big R&B halls was back at square one, performing for small crowds to keep food on the table. She even lived off food stamps at times, constantly battling lawsuits from promoters who wanted compensation for canceled Ike and Tina gigs. She was, effectively, an over 40 single mother trying to salvage a future in an industry that often discards older female performers. Yet she wouldn't fold. She discovered Buddhism in the early 70s, and the chanting practice had become her anchor. The daily chants, she said, soothed her anxiety and gave her mental stamina. She credited it with fueling her final push to leave Ike, and now it kept her steady as she navigated the precarious post-marriage years. She also overcame a horrifying moment where she was shot at, forcing her to sleep in a closet for safety. The desperation was real, but so was her resolve. She would either rise again or go down fighting. There was no middle ground for a spirit as fierce as Tina Turner's. The 1980s ushered in a new wave of possibilities. Music videos were becoming crucial, with MTV dominating youth culture. While many older artists floundered, Tina saw a chance to showcase her showmanship. She recorded a version of Ball of Confusion in 1982, making her one of the earliest black women to appear on MTV. That track didn't blow up, but it gave her a minor foot in the door. Then, in 1983, lightning struck. She collaborated with British producers who believed in her raw rock edge, releasing a cover of Al Green's Let's Stay Together that became a hit in the UK. Suddenly, major labels realized that Tina Turner might be more than a nostalgia act. In 1984, she recorded the album Private Dancer in a blisteringly short period, just 2 weeks, alongside top-tier British session players. The result was a phenomenon that took the world by storm. The single What's Love Got to Do With It soared to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, marking her first time claiming that coveted spot. She was 44, an age at which the industry typically discards female pop stars, and yet she was rewriting the rules. The album sold millions, racked up multiple Grammys, and catapulted Tina into the realm of unstoppable mega celebrity. She was everywhere, on magazine covers, on MTV, on talk shows, performing for sold-out arenas. That year, and the ones to follow, saw her colliding with the biggest names in rock, Bryan Adams, David Bowie, Mick Jagger, melding her fierce R&B roots with mainstream pop rock appeal. Her Live Aid performance in 1985 exemplified the new Tina Turner era. She took the stage with Mick Jagger. The two practically tore the roof off the place. At one point, Jagger dramatically pulled off part of Tina's outfit, leaving her in a leotard, an improvised moment that might have humiliated a lesser star. Tina laughed it off and kept going, exuding the swagger of someone who had faced far darker days. She was unstoppable indeed. That same year, she also joined the film world starring as Auntie in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, further cementing her cultural icon status. But stardom didn't erase the ghosts. Ike and Tina Turner got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1991, and Ike, locked up on drug charges, couldn't attend. Tina refused to appear as well, not wanting to overshadow her achievements as a solo artist or to pretend everything was fine between them. She was forging her own legacy, unchained from Ike's control. She wrestled with body image issues, at times calling herself ugly or pony-like, though fans revered her distinctive look. The wild lion's mane of hair, those famously toned legs, the short skirts that allowed for dynamic, high-energy movements. She might have doubted her looks privately, but to the outside world, she was a mesmerizing force. In 1986, while traveling through Heathrow Airport, Tina crossed paths with Erwin Bach, a German music executive. Sparks flared from the start. After the loveless, abusive fiasco of her marriage to Ike, she found genuine partnership for the first time. Erwin was younger, 16 years her junior, but offered a kind of stability, patience, and devotion that Tina had never known. Over time, they built a life together, mainly in Europe, where Tina felt both safer and more appreciated. She'd fill stadiums across the continent, commanding crowds with her dynamic stage presence, proving that a 40-something, then 50-something woman could still rock harder than artists half her age. Eventually, she felt drawn to settle in Switzerland. By 2013, the Swiss lifestyle charmed her so deeply that she renounced her American citizenship, adopting Swiss nationality. It was a quiet statement. She no longer felt the U.S. was her true home. She'd endured too much heartbreak there. In a sense, Europe became a fresh canvas for her final chapters, a place to enjoy calm away from the harshness of her earlier life. She also decided she was done with touring after her 50th anniversary tour in 2008-9. That spectacle grossed millions, but the exhaustion was real, and she wanted to find peace at last. In 2013, Tina married Erwin in a civil ceremony on the banks of Lake Zurich. She was 73 by then. Just weeks after saying "I do," she suffered a stroke that left her temporarily unable to walk. Doctors feared she might never be independent again. But if there was one unwavering quality about Tina Turner, it was resilience. She put herself through rigorous rehab, eventually recovering her mobility. Then, in 2016, she was diagnosed with intestinal cancer, tried homeopathic remedies that led to kidney failure, and faced one of the darkest corridors of her life. Erwin Bach stepped in to save her, donating one of his kidneys in a 2017 transplant that, once again, gave Tina a chance at a normal life. Even in her 70s, she was fighting for survival, much as she always had since childhood. The heartbreak kept coming, though. In 2018, her eldest son, Craig, took his own life. Tina called that loss the greatest pain she'd ever endured. She flew to California to scatter his ashes, mourning that her child had chosen an exit from a world that had treated them both so harshly. That same year, the stage musical Tina debuted in London's West End, chronicling her life story with her approval. Audiences relived her early heartbreaks, the Ike and Tina review triumph, the dark nights of abuse, the eventual liberation, and her meteoric rise as a solo star. Meanwhile, in her personal world, she spent quiet days with Erwin at their Swiss estate, a sign outside reading, "No doorbell before noon," reveling in the long stretches of sleep she'd never enjoyed in her grueling touring years. She had, at last, found a measure of contentment. During the interviews in her later years, Tina often reflected on forgiveness. She said chanting, her Buddhist practice, allowed her to release the bitterness toward Ike. Not that she wanted anything to do with him, but the mental burden lifted. She sometimes told fans that her greatest gift was showing other women they could break free from abuse. Women approached her saying, You gave me the courage to leave my own violent partner." She accepted that role as an unexpected champion of survivors, beyond being the queen of rock and roll. She also recognized that her unique story connected with people of all backgrounds. She'd grown up in poverty, felt unlovable, faced racism, endured domestic violence, overcame a late career slump, soared to worldwide stardom, and eventually retreated into a peaceful Swiss existence. One final heartbreak. Ike died in 2007 from an overdose. Tina refused to attend his funeral or make any big public statements, explaining that she'd already mentally separated from him for decades. In her heart, she'd found the closure she needed. Then, as time rolled on, she heard about new tragedies but kept living quietly. She wasn't exactly reclusive, but she valued her privacy. Some dear friends and family visited, sure, but she was done playing the global superstar. She'd earned the right to vanish into the Swiss hills if she wanted. Her official farewell to touring came in 2009. She stuck to that vow, never staging a big comeback or final show. For fans, it was bittersweet, knowing the unstoppable stage presence of Tina Turner would not ignite the spotlight again. But the musical tributes, the documentaries, the general celebration of her life didn't let up. What's Love Got to Do with It? 1993. The film starring Angela Bassett as Tina gave one Hollywood dramatization of her Ike years. Many other projects followed, but she kept a comfortable distance from the hype, only occasionally endorsing certain productions. She once said that after all the chaos, she'd discovered peace with Irwin, relishing every day in a place free from the ghosts of her past. She didn't need U.S. fame anymore. She didn't want to cling to the old memories. That quiet orchard of happiness seemed to sustain her through her final health battles, a devout swirl of chanting holistic living apart from the urgent Western medicine interventions for her kidneys and cancer, and support from the man she called the love of her life made her final stretch one of acceptance. Then came May 24th, 2023, the day Tina Turner passed away at age 83. She'd endured multiple illnesses, stroke, cancer, kidney transplant complications, and it finally overcame her. The world paused to grieve. Tributes poured in from every corner, from elder rock legends who remembered her on the same stage as them decades ago, from modern pop superstars who revered her boundary-breaking achievements, from fans who were once battered wives themselves and found courage in her example, from everyday folks who had simply danced to Proud Mary or What's Love Got to Do with It at their weddings. Tina Turner's life was filled with triumph and tragedy, but through it all, she remained a symbol of strength, resilience, and reinvention. Her music and legacy continue to inspire generations, proving that no matter the hardships, greatness can be achieved. What's your favorite Tina Turner song or memory? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.